Guess the options are incredible. Are
Limitless.
so many. Yeah, limitless. Um, yeah. So it's basically in every single aspect of our lives, and there will be a lot of different options for entrepreneurs, and industries that are already established will have to be pretty much reinvented. Because if you have such a powerful computer systems that can make decisions that are more accurate than us, then that will mean that many things will have to change.
Hello, and welcome to the Mindful Entrepreneur Podcast. We're your hosts, Tati and Gerry Jimenez.
Join us as entrepreneurs and brother and sister interview inspiring leaders in different fields to explore how they've achieved results and fulfillment. Let's get started as soul, passion, and business come together at The Mindful Entrepreneur. Carlos Ríos Ocampo is a Colombian-born physicist and highly respected researcher. His PhD at Oxford led him and his team of international researchers to the creation of the world's first light-based memory chip able to store data indefinitely, potentially changing the fundamentals of computing as we know them. At 29, he's a leading expert in nanophotonics, the study of light, and is widely published in academic journals including Nature Photonics, the world's top scientific journal in the field. He has a BS in physics from Universidad de Antioquia, a master's in optics and photonics from the KIT in Germany, and he received his PhD in materials in the UK from the University of Oxford. Carlos prioritizes family, friends, and connecting with nature, and enjoys hikes, camping, hunting, and other sports, including karate. He represented both Colombia and England on the national teams in karate tournaments.
Hello, game changers. This is Gerry, founder of Vita Factor, where we help modern entrepreneurs strategize and grow their business.
And I'm Tati, founder of The Genius Spot, where we empower women to lead with confidence and to live mindful and productive lives. And today we have the honor of speaking with someone who could soon revolutionize all of your daily activities, from running your computer-based companies to making simple purchases. This is the man that can literally help you reach the speed of light.
He's worked in creating the world's first light-based memory computer chip, the fastest chip in existence today. So if you like technology and innovation, or you simply want to find out what the next big thing is, you definitely want to stick around and hear about this amazing man and his incredible invention. And we got to give credit to our sister Viviana, who also graduated from Oxford, and it's thanks to her that we are able to have Carlos as our guest today. So Carlos, thank you for being here. It's an honor to have you in our show.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be here with you today.
Awesome, Carlos. So, Carlos, let's start out by getting the difficult questions out of the way first.
Mm-hmm.
You and your team have created the world's first light-based memory computer chip. Can you explain in very simple terms what that is?
Yeah, so what we have developed here at Oxford, it's a new way to storage information permanently using light.
How is it different to what we use now?
Yeah, so it is very different because we are using light instead of electricity. So we are not using the conventional electronic circuits. We are building and designing some new photonic circuits. And this is a big area of research right now. It's also, it's done by a lot of groups around the world. So it's not that we're inventing the photonic circuits. The photonic circuits are there, and a big community of scientists like us here are trying to push it forward by filling the gaps that are missing. And one of those gaps was, hey, we need a memory. We need a memory that can store the data permanently, and that's the work we've done. And to get there, what we did was to use a material that is actually not new. It's the same material that allowed CDs and DVDs to go to a readable unit. So these materials are called phase change materials. So it's as simple as having a material that can exist in two different states, and we can control in what state the material is at the moment by using light. And we can use also light to read again. So we write and read both using light. But this material was extremely underexplored. The community just used it for CDs, DVDs, and for the new Blu-ray discs that are also used there. So the original idea was, hey, we can use this material that has extremely interesting optical properties and bring it to photonic circuits, combine it, and try to see if we can basically reproduce what a CD does, but on a photonic circuit. And that's exactly what we did. So it's a CD can store the information permanently. So you go write and then use it, then go rewrite, but you don't need power. The CD is just the unit. So we did the same. We put the material on top of some small, tiny waveguides. That's why we call it nanophotonics, because we're working in nanotechnologies at extremely small scales. So the waveguide can be like, let's say 10 million, a 10 millionth part of a meter. So that's the scale we're working. So it's very small. And we put the material on top. And the light that is propagated in these waveguides can control the state of the material. So we can switch the material between the two states using the light. And that's our information, basically. The information is stored, is codified in the material, but you can write it and read it optically. And that's what we use as a processing, that's the information we're processing. And it's all done with light again. So we are keeping apart electronics. We are making use of light because it's faster, because it doesn't have problems with heating, and because it has a extremely interesting property that we call multiplexing. So it means you can send a lot of data together, packed in one waveguide. So imagine the fiber optics. Everyone knows the fiber optics. So if you want to send a lot of channels with electronics, you need a cable per channel. If you want to send a lot of channels with optics, you just need one and send all the light together. Like if it was white light and each color has different information. And that's an extremely unique property that light has that electronics doesn't. So we are exploiting those three: multiplexing, speed, and heating. That's what we are doing different.
Great.
Excellent.
Great.
That makes great sense. So you've created the chip, and from what I understand now, you need to create the computer, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So we started with the fundamental unit that was in memory, but we found out, luckily, that we have extremely interesting behaviors. We don't have just the zeros and ones that computers normally use. We can access 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've been able to demonstrate up to 32 levels, which basically means 3 electronic memories in only 5 electronic memories, or like bits, all in only 1 photonic bit. And what that means is that we can combine like memories and processor and do arithmetics, do calculations directly on the memory. And we also found that these multi-levels can also, we can tailor the way we reach these multi-levels to make it function as a neuron. So we found very interesting properties, but that was a single unit. Now the question is how we make this unit into an architecture and build it as a computer. That's where we're going now. So now the team is much larger. What started with me as demonstrating the first part now has 3 postdocs here, 3 postdocs in Germany, and everyone is looking different aspects now. So it's grown a lot. Hopefully we will have, we've already done great achievements in the computation, on the computational side too. So we've demonstrated already some very basic computation, but it's still at the scale of 2 or 3 devices together. If we want to scale this to a large architecture, that's more an engineering problem than a scientific problem. And that's why we next are thinking of teaming up with with a team that has different skills to be able to take it to a proper computer that can be used by anyone. So what we're aiming to do is to have a full architecture when we can do computing using light instead of electricity. So we aim to move from electronics to photonics. because we will have so many different advantages that we want to make it to the next generation of technology. Some of those advantages, as you may think, and as you already mentioned, is the speed. So we will be working literally at the speed of light, but we will be also using other advantages of using light. One of those is energy efficiency, because photonic circuits don't have problems with heating, and that's one of the ways that normal computers are wasting a lot of energy. And if you think about like big data centers, they need very controlled cooling systems to keep the systems running at a normal temperature. So mainly those two components make a computer working with light already attractive. But beyond that, there are more technical aspects of it. We would like to have a photonic computer because it can solve something that the normal computers are struggling with right now, and this is called the Foy-Neumann bottleneck. So to put it in simple words, it's a bottleneck between the memory and between the processor. So if you've seen since 15 years ago up to today, there have been a lot of improvements in both, in memories and in the processor of the computer. But like since 4 or 5 years ago, there have not been any significant improvement in the way the computers work, despite having even better memories and better processors. And the problem is that if you have the two units, they still need to communicate. So they are really good each independently, but they cannot communicate faster because they've reached the limit. So that's called the bottleneck. And if you use light, you can completely solve that. And one of the first steps to solve that was to have a memory that can store the information permanently. It means like the hard disk of a computer. So before there were a lot of different memories. There were other memories that could storage the information, but as soon as you turn the power off, everything was gone. So what we did was to have the first memory that has the data storage that can store the data and keep it even if the power is off. This means we can store the information as if it was a hard disk. Now, if you think about the memory and the processor, if the memory works with light, then you can communicate the processor to the memory, store the information, read it, and come back at the speed of light. So you solve the bottleneck. So that on the first aspects of it. And ultimately, you can also think of different architectures. So the fact of using photonics on a chip means that we can also build new ways of doing computing. And the most exciting architecture that we are thinking right now is a neuromorphic computing architecture, where we will use our materials, our photonic chips, to do computation in the same way that the brain does it. So there are a lot of really interesting opportunities, and maybe you have more questions.
So yes, so it's really interesting. So what you're saying is when you talk about having computers work in the way the brain works, from my understanding, at this point, computers work with the binary system?
Yes, they do.
And then how would that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So computers work using zeros and ones. So they use the binary system because basically that's what electronics with the transistors do. But I'm sure you've heard about artificial intelligence. So what artificial intelligence is doing is using brain-inspired algorithms, but they're using still computers that work with 0 and 1s. And if you really want to bring these algorithms to its full potential, you have to have algorithms that work as the brain works in an architecture that works also in the way the brain works. And what this means is having cell units on a photonic chip that can behave as neurons, that can have the same, we call it nonlinear behavior, when one neuron will send a signal to another neuron, and you can build a neural network, which is basically knowledge. And we can do this with the materials we've been using and with the architectures we're using. Although we are still at the first steps, with them, the same memory that you mentioned that we invented, the memory that stores the information permanently using light, have other properties. It's not only storing zeros and one, it can store multiple levels, or it has something we call accumulation property. And we were lucky enough to realize that that accumulation property is exactly the same that a neuron does. So we're just exploiting that fact to move it forwards to an architecture that can make use of that, and also hopefully build an architecture that can improve the way the computer is done, because we already have the software, but the combination of both would be a completely powerful tool.
So what was your role in this exactly? What did you, because you said we already have the software now, it's a computer. Mm-hmm. Can you share with the audience what your role in all of this was?
Yes, so the software, the algorithms, is a completely huge hot topic of research in computer science. But we are a team of physicists, material scientists, and engineers. And what we do, we focus on the hardware. So we need to develop the system. And my work, that was my PhD project, was to demonstrate the use of these materials that are called phase change materials as memory elements. And it was just as simple as that. The original idea came from my current supervisor and my former supervisor, and my role was to demonstrate it experimentally. So I took the material, I designed the entire system, I did the calculations on how everything had to be used, and eventually went to the lab. Well, I fabricated too. We fabricate the chips ourselves, and went to the lab and measured it. So my project here was to even build the optical system to measure everything. And yeah, after several months of trying and failing, failing, we figured out how to control the material. And we thought it was going to be zeros and ones, and the fact that we could control it was just already exciting. But when we started finding, like, the way we can control the material offers like so many different options, we got really excited, because all these options, what I mentioned, and doing like neuromorphic computation or computation on higher bases, all of them came as extra. So we were really excited about that.
So really interesting how it has evolved, and you know, and so I'm wondering, is there any other impact that you foresee having in technology, and beyond technology, what other areas do you foresee an impact this will have?
Yeah, so having a neuromorphic computer in all the sense of the word, having the hardware and the software for that, would absolutely revolutionize the way we're doing computing. And it means the next generation of computers, and they will have the artificial intelligence. All what we've been hearing about artificial intelligence would be potentialized with this technology, and we will be able to have it not using big clusters of computers as it is right now, but then we will be able to do it in a small computer, right. In a small laptop. So basically, imagine everything you can do with computers that can be revolutionized by having this technology.
Yeah. When you said that it was going to behave like a neuron, mm-hmm. Supposedly our memory doesn't, especially if we're women, we don't mm-hmm. forget things.
Yes, we know that very well. Thank you, Tati.
Will computers be that? Because that's scary.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting point. There is a lot of ethical issues that can rise out of these sort of architectures. We know that we are as excited as scared, because it depends on who is using that. But I don't know if you've heard about Google Mind or like DeepMind and all these. So DeepMind was a company that started here in Oxford, and it was a startup from computer scientists just doing the software for artificial intelligence, and they can teach. They can program a computer to learn by themselves. So say, look at millions of videos in YouTube and learn how to recognize a cat, and learn how to speak Spanish, and look how to do this. Or ultimately, you play video games and you give it some instructions, and the computer left alone will learn how to play the game and will learn how to optimize the score, ultimately being better than any human being. And they've proved that by playing chess. So chess was a long time ago when a computer could defeat the master of Kasparov and back then. But there is this other game, the Japanese game called Go, that's many times more complicated than chess. And only this year, if I'm not mistaken, or the end of last year, DeepMind with neural networks was able to teach a computer how to play Go and finally defeat the world champion in Go. So this could be used in many things. You can use it in very good sides, but it can also go to very bad hands. And so having an architecture that can learn by itself means that the economical system and all the trading around stocks and all this can change to new dimensions we still cannot really foresee.
So great. So it sounds like, it's going to be less energy, faster, definitely speed, more operations.
Yes.
And definitely, I think in the very short term, it can have an impact also on sustainability, because you're using less electricity and you're needing less resources to maintain everything.
And definitely, and pretty much every person right now has a phone and has a computer. So we can make that more efficient. It means the battery life will be longer. Let's say normal computers using light, without going to the brain aspect of it, or like the self-learning aspect of it. Just having a laptop that will not heat up, that will be more energy efficient, it already means a lot. And maybe not for a laptop, but definitely yes, for a data center that is spending huge amounts of energy in cooling the system and being extremely inefficient. And that's what we need at the moment. We need better more energy efficient systems, and computers are everywhere. So hopefully that will imply savings in electricity. And so just imagine, it can be a really strong environmental impact if we can have more energy efficient computers.
That sounds incredible, and it sounds fantastic. How do you think this disruptive technology will impact entrepreneurs and businesses, especially those that run their operations from their laptop?
This will change it a lot. We've already seen it from the software point of view. So from the software point of view, there are a lot of new tools that allowed people trading and people using technological applications, or let's say so using software to create phone applications, computer applications. And these applications are getting smarter and smarter because they're using artificial intelligence software to be able to create all these. Now imagine if you can potentialize those software that can tell you more information about whatever application in particular you're using, and using this hardware to potentialize that software. So I guess the options are incredible. Are so many, yeah, limitless. Yeah, so it's basically in every single aspect of our lives, and there will be a lot of different options for entrepreneurs, and industries that are already established will have to be pretty much reinvented, because if you have such a powerful computer systems that can make decisions that are more accurate than us, then that will mean that many things will have to change.
So it sounds very interesting especially for online entrepreneurs who are, discovering what people like, what they don't like, the tendencies. It sounds like this would be huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think computers and softwares are going to change a lot in the next coming years. So as I told you, there are a lot of new software, a lot of new tools that are extremely powerful that we are already seeing out there. but the computer, the architecture, the hardware is quite delayed. And that's what we want to change. We want to be able to keep it up with the software. So you can use like all these new tools in software in a more efficient way because you have the hardware that is perfectly designed for that.
Do you think computers will replace, if that happens, do you think they will replace people?
I think it's already a reality that we're seeing. Computers are already taking over different jobs. And that's very complicated. I cannot really say right now, right here, if that's good or that's bad. It just represents a lot of challenges for society. It will either be good if we are able to reinvent ourselves and change a lot of different professions that can be easily automatized and replaced by a robot that has artificial intelligence, and move all these people to find more useful, well, maybe not more useful, but let's say use this technology, for to boost their own career. So it's not that they will just say, oh, well, these robots are going to do this and all these people are completely left behind and then we have a problem. No, it's how we reinvent our society and say, well, now we have to educate all these people. Now we have these tools. Let's invent more things. What can we do with these tools? Instead of say, oh, no, well, they replaced us. No, it's how we use that and how we live together with that. We've seen examples already how Uber will completely shape the taxi industry, transportation industry, Airbnb, how artists have to embrace the technological innovations and know that CDs are no longer like the way they will produce they will get the money. So it's not necessarily fighting against all those things. It's, well, this is what is now. How are we going to use it? And there are a lot of people who are doing absolutely great, and that has given rise to so many new entrepreneurs and like industries and companies. So let's make use of it, not make it an enemy.
Right, and that's a whole idea behind innovation, right?
Yes.
You have to embrace change, and you have to leverage all this new technology or new ideas to move forward. So it's a great point that you're making. Great point.
Stay tuned to next episode when we go further into finding out who is the man behind this invention, his very surprising past, and what is ahead both for him and for technology.
Hey, and before you leave, both the Genius Spot and Be the Factor want to thank you, our awesome audience, for being part of our podcast. And if you found this episode of value, please share it with your friends and loved ones so they too can join the Mindful Entrepreneur.